Hey there, everybody. This is Ammie Dover with the DoverDrive Experience. I'm coming to you today with an extra special show. I love all of my guests because we get to share all the goodness, all the tips, all the knowledge that you need to kick your life and business into DoverDrive. And listen, I love coming to you and sharing this information and sharing these guests with you because I get to learn so much right alongside you. These people are coming in to gift us with their knowledge and their wisdom and just their heart and love and just pour that into every single person that is watching today. And today is no exception with that guest. And we have Reverend Christy Snow on with the Carolina Center for Spiritual Awakening. She is the lead pastor. She is quickly becoming one of my new favorite human beings. So welcome to the DoverDrive Experience, Christy.
It is so good to be with you today, Amy. Thanks for having me on board. I really appreciate all that you do, and I'm happy to be here today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this because we're talking about, we do a lot of ACE planning here, right? So that is awareness, creativity, and emotional resiliency that you need as the person to be able to affect change in your life and your business. And so we want to talk a lot today about awareness, love, and the energy that you need to really affect that change. And, we were talking a little bit before the show and just talking about how we're doing that on the micro level and the macro level. And you, my dear, are one of the busiest people I have seen in a while. And I like to consider myself pretty darn busy.
Well, it's true.
It's true. So tell us a little bit about what's happening right now, because as a pastor and as someone who is leading change and really educating folks on what that means individually so that you can have impact in your community, tell us where you've been this past week.
On the streets of Uptown Charlotte a lot, and on WhatsApp with over 100 ministers. You get 100 ministers on a WhatsApp, and it's a full-time job to keep up with that thread, let me tell you. But after the death of George Floyd, of course, the whole world is protesting the injustices that are inflicted on Black people. And it took more so than I've ever seen. I think they've called it the largest civil rights movement in history because it is spanning the globe, thank God. And right after that, a week later, we had something happen in Charlotte that was just an excessive use of force by the police department. There is an internal investigation. There's an SBI investigation. Anyway, the long story short of it was that peaceful protesters, and my wife and I were there 10 minutes before this happened. I can attest to it being very peaceful the entire night. And my clergy friends remained after, and they employed some tactics that were kind of corralling people and tear gassed a lot of people. So we got on a WhatsApp the very next day with the clergy, a lot of interfaith clergy, all different walks and beliefs, got together on this WhatsApp. We got together on a Zoom call first, and we said we have to do something. So we wrote a letter to the city officials, to the mayor, the city council, the police chief, the city manager, everyone. And then we decided, you know what, we need to do more. So yesterday we had a die-in, like a sit-in, but all of the white clergy laid down on the concrete while the Black clergy stood around us and read a 2 pages list of demands of how we want to see police reform in Charlotte. And last night, coincidentally, the vote to the city council was last night to approve next year's budget, a huge portion of which goes to the police department and some of that to chemical agents. So the vote went through to strike chemical agents from the 2021 budget. We still have a long way to go, but that was a win. So
That's a big win.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what I hear from that, and regardless of where you stand in the situation right now, you have to stand for justice, and you have to stand for change. And I hear a lot in just what I do, and I'm sure you as well, right? That the situation is X and that these things are coming at me. And it's really difficult to think about the fact that you can physically change something,
Yes.
But it takes what? It takes action, it takes love, it takes intention, it takes, discipline to follow through. It really takes, being that force inside yourself first. Uh,
Absolutely. We have to create the internal peace. I teach a lot of classes on meditation and mindfulness, and that's extremely important. But then, and getting clear about the issues, being aware of what's going on. But then the most powerfully placed, poignant words are going to mean nothing if we don't put them into action with our presence in the community and our advocacy for change.
So one of the things that I love about in the prep for this, like I feel like I learned so much in the prep for all of these shows, is the fact that I just love that you kind of say the best place to start is just having love and authenticity,
You can't go wrong with those two things.
right? Right. And
Yeah.
so I feel like right now there's this heightened sensitivity, and rightfully so, don't get me wrong. There's this heightened sensitivity about what we can and cannot say. And I feel like as long as you are having an open, loving, authentic conversation, it's okay to not always have the right thing to say. It's important to be having the conversation.
It is so important to be having the conversation. I'm glad you brought that up. I think that two things come to mind. One, white people speak up. And at the same time, white people shut up. It's like these two things happening at one time, because we do need to speak up and be the voice when our Black family is not being heard. But at the same time, we can't know what it's like,
Right.
as a white person. So we have to listen, and that's the best way to be an ally, is to be able to speak and to listen. Both of those things are very important.
And we were talking a little bit ago about what is right and what's not right, and it just takes all kinds of acts of service to combat something as big an issue as what we're dealing with right now. And one of the things that I specifically want to address today is, you know, give people a little grace in where they are and how they're dealing, because you don't know what they're dealing with behind the scenes. You don't know how they're taking action. Just because someone isn't out on the street with you does not mean they're not behind you or inflicting action or trying to affect change in their way. And it takes so many different kinds of action to combat an issue this large.
It really does. And I've been kind of I normally tell my spiritual community a little more about what I'm doing when it comes to. I would normally tell them more about what I'm doing when it comes to, like yesterday, for example, the die-in uptown. But I haven't shared as much because I know a lot of folks in our community are in the high risk category for COVID, and at the same time they are allies and they would be out there in a heartbeat. But I'm wanting them to stay safe and remember that we are in the middle of a pandemic. So that I'm very acutely aware of the fact that there are people that, for whatever reason, are not marching.
Right.
But I am seeing those people and so many more marching on Facebook, in conversations with their families, and doing what you're doing with shows like this to bring awareness. So there's so many different ways that we can be on the front line, so to speak. It's just important that we find what's ours to do.
Right. But do what's right for you, for your household, for your health, for your own emotional and physical and intellectual capacity even. We're all different, and that goes way beyond color. We're all different as human beings. The person who has the same color skin sitting right next to you is a completely different human being. So, just giving that grace along the way, and really recognizing that everybody has to find their own way and not judging for them not looking and behaving exactly like you.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
So for those of you that are tuned in, if you have questions for Christy and you just want to engage and even join the conversation, you are certainly welcome to do that. We're not going to make this incredibly political today. We really just want to talk about things and raise the awareness so that you know who you are and how you can step forward into your life and into your community. And if we give you one nugget of wisdom or one nugget of an inkling of an action that you can physically take, then we have done our jobs today. We will not say the absolute right thing. Just let it be known right now. I usually don't. I have very little filter. It comes from brain to mouth, and Christy doesn't know this about me, but some of you who are watching do know this, that that's kind of the way that I teach. And I teach to think out loud, as long as it's in a loving, safe, authentic space to where it's so much harder to conjure up creativity. It's easier to just let it pour out. Just let the creativity pour out and then sift through what's going to work for the situation and those that are involved. And so, as you guys are watching this, know that that's exactly my intent, is that we're thinking out loud, and I'm considering this a safe, loving space, because that is absolutely our intent. We are coming to this with love and authenticity. One of the other things that I want to get to with Christy while I have her on the line, because I want her to share more than I actually share today, because she has way more wisdom than I do, is the fact that, we have so much control in a time that we don't really control a whole lot, but we do have control over our thoughts and the energy that we put forward. So for anyone who's watching this right now, Christy, can you talk to them about reframing their mindset into just claiming their intention and walking out and creating energy?
Yes, absolutely. I think that it goes back to what you said about what is getting in touch with what is ours to do individually, right? So that's a first step, is what is mine to do, and realizing that our thoughts and our feelings create experiences in our world. So it's so important that we really keep the focus on what is my inner atmosphere. What are the predominant feeling and thinking atmosphere? What is the predominant thinking and feeling atmosphere that I am swimming in every day, and really being aware of that and being responsible for that, and then asking the question, what is mine to do? It doesn't mean we don't get overwhelmed and think, oh, what's the point? My little to do is not going to make a difference, but it does. And we just keep staying the course, even if it means taking a minute to reset, recenter, refocus, and start out again. I have to brag on some folks in our community. Carolina Center for Spiritual Awakening is such a beautiful community I'm so blessed to be part of. And our prayer team has really stepped up during this time of COVID and sheltering in place. And they do daily meditations every single day. They do these readings. And then three of those folks, Terry Ann Lividoti, Frankie Pickens, and Tamala Harris, said, we need a COVID task force. Talk about tapping in and saying what's mine to do. They decided on their own, we need a COVID task force. And now we have that. And so we're putting together resources for those that are affected by this virus. And anyway, I got off track a little bit, but it goes to what you're speaking of, and recognizing that our thoughts and our feelings create is great, but it's not only about our individual experience, because we are part of a collective consciousness. So we say, what is mine to do, and how does it fit into this collective greater good?
Yeah, and it's really I'm just I'm in here with you right now, because that what is mine to do just looks so different. Mm-hmm. And the taking the step to maybe what's yours to do right now is less action and more learning, right? And yes. Less talking and more listening. And maybe what's yours to do is to connect with somebody that you've seen on a show like this, or one of the guests that really said something that touched your heart and resonated with you, and you just need more of that. Well, use this as that prompting to get connected.
Yes. And it's because it may seem like, well, how is that important? My wife felt overwhelmed the other night at 2 a.m. after the incident uptown Charlotte, and she was out walking in the grass barefoot, right? That was hers to do in that moment. She had to connect. She had to ground and center. So what is yours to do in any moment? Could be start a nonprofit, or it could be go walk in the grass. It's about having a new level of relationship with yourself and with the creator that moves around and through us, and not being on autopilot, not being defended against life, but working with life, leaning into life, leaning into the question.
Yeah, lean into that question. But also, I personally feel like now is a time where you can ask an uncomfortable question and it's not going to be met with resistance or hostility or thinking that you're ignorant about a fact. Well, we may be ignorant about a fact, but the fact that I'm asking you a question means that I want to get educated or I
Yeah.
want your perspective. And so I really encourage you guys, if you're watching this right now and you're thinking, what can I do? I have questions. Please ask them.
Yes. It's
They're-
vulnerable though, right? Isn't it? It's
Oh,
being vulnerable. And I love that Pema Chodron is one of my favorite teachers and authors. And she said, our vulnerability is our greatest strength. And I've taught that so much in my classes. And in the beginning of class, people look at me like, no, it's not. You kidding? And then by the end of classes, we get underneath that the ways that we defend against life.
right. Because I feel like we also, most of us being professionals, at probably the largest part of our day is walking around acting and looking like we've got it together. We don't. We don't.
We
We make a
don't.
valiant effort, right? And
Yeah.
we try, but a lot of the times, we don't. And that's why, when I started this, I just said, I learned so much along the way too. This has been such a great journey for me that I feel like now, with every single guest, I am better equipped to serve my clients. I am better equipped to ask myself hard questions. I'm better equipped to facilitate those discussions when I get asked those hard questions. And
I
so,
I when I I can totally relate to that because when I first became a minister, I was gung ho and excited, and then all of a sudden it was like one day reality hit a few months in, and I went, "Oh my God, I don't know how to do this." And I
right?
called my mentor, and I'm like, what if they ask this, and what if they ask that?" I thought I had to have every single answer locked in a queue, ready to go, be able to answer it perfectly, the most spiritually evolved, answer to any possible scenario. And he's like a father figure to me. He said, "Baby girl, show up and be love.
Yeah.
Show up and be love." That's and that is not passive as you might think, as passive as you might think. Show up and be love can be a very active thing.
I can tell you, coming from someone who, I'm going to be a lot transparent at the moment. Coming from someone who finds it difficult to let that in my personal life, in business, it's different. I have a lot of experience. I have good answers, or we'll find good answers. One of the two is going to happen, right? I'm in with you regardless. So we're going to get there. But on a personal level, and we're talking more today about kicking your life into DoverDrive than your business. So, on that personal level, all of that love and that mushy stuff and the extra and just dealing with all the emotion and it's harder to be as open with it. And not that we don't do it and we don't try, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it is definitely harder. It's definitely
and,
harder.
and yet it makes life move smoother, right? There is this institute in California called the HeartMath Institute, and they've done research on heart brain harmonizing. And you just by placing your hand on your heart, you take your attention from your head to your heart. By slowing your breath, you move out of fight or flight. And this is anyone, regardless of a religious affiliation or not, a meditator or not, just doing this, hand on heart, head to heart, slowing your breath out of fight or flight. And it engenders a feeling of safety. Then continuing that slow breath, but feeling the feelings of love, of gratitude, of absolute appreciation. They have proven that it chemically releases a cascade of chemicals in your body that are anti-aging, that are promote cardiovascular health and clarity, all of these things. So even though it sounds mushy and like, I don't know, I don't want to it helps our relationships. It helps us be creative. It helps us be an agent of change when change is needed. It's important that we let the love in as not as maybe as mushy as we once thought. It actually is practical.
I'm going to remember that. I'm like, no, this is practical. This is logical. Because the more logical it is, the more I'm likely to do it.
There you go. It is logical, Ammie. It is logical. There's science behind it. I promise you.
Oh my goodness. I have this thing, and I noticed this. I don't know when I noticed this, but every single time that someone says take a deep breath, and it can be that I'm listening to a video, it could be on television when they're in yoga class. It doesn't matter. When someone says take a deep breath, I take a deep breath. And it really just brings me right back down. No matter what I'm doing, even if I'm sitting on the couch watching a movie, watching somebody do yoga in a movie, if they say take a deep breath, I'm like, I'll do that too. I need that too. So
Yes.
yeah, that's my dumb little thing that I do all the time. But yeah.
That's
And
good.
so, literally, guys, if you are not following, I want you to take an action right now. If you are not following the Carolina Center for Spiritual Awakening, you should be. Christy, you are live at 11 every Sunday, right? Because you've
Yes.
adopted this new technology and you're taking service on a much more global capacity now.
Yes. Yeah.
Christy will
Very
tell you
excited.
at that service at 11 to take a deep breath at some point.
I will.
I'm doing it with you, my dear. I am. I am.
Good.
It's nuts. It's one of my little quirks, but I just take that as a moment, as a reminder to just kind of recenter and let go. And it's really funny. I think a lot of people kind of walk through their day and they're just wound. Right? You're just tight, and you don't
Yes.
even mean to be, right?
Right.
And
Your
so
shoulders are up here and you're walking around with, yeah, exactly.
so I take that as a moment to just release all the things that I'm not even conscious that I'm carrying at that moment.
Good.
Um, but yeah, that's me and all my little quirks. Tell us about where you can be found in the future, because you have a lot of good things coming up. You have some workshops coming up, some classes. So share that with those that are listening today.
I do. I do. Okay. So I have a class that I created about 10 years ago called Living in Solution, because people would, I would do coaching with people and they would ask these questions about, but I just want to be happy, or I just want to be, feel a sense of self-love and freedom and mindfulness, all these things. And I thought, this sounds like a class that I want to teach. So I created a curriculum that's a year-long adventure, really. And we meet once a month, a whole day on a Saturday, once a month. And so it's called Living in Solution. It's all about mindfulness, authenticity, being the change that you want to see, being the love you want to see. It promotes peace in your experience with yourself, with your relationships, and it helps people uncover their purpose for being here. It really is one of the best things I've ever been part of. And so someone asked me this, my friend Laura Berman out in Portland, Oregon. She said, would you be interested? Would you be open to doing like a maybe give us a snippet of what we could expect in this class in a shorter version, like a 6-week class? And I thought, So in about a day of thinking, I came up with a class called Radical Acceptance, and it's based on this book by Jeff Foster, The Deepest Acceptance, Radical Awakening in Ordinary Life. And I'm structuring it in a 6-week class starting in July on Mondays. And this, I've decided, is going to be a prerequisite to the Living in Solution class, which will start in the fall, in October, because it does give you an idea of what we're talking about when we're talking about leaning into life and being vulnerable and being authentic and allowing love in so it can come back out. So that's exciting
Like
for me.
that's a cycle, right? It's a cycle.
Yes. Like the breath.
Yes. Well, thank you so very much for joining me today. It was my pleasure. I think we need to do a little bit of a recap maybe towards the end of the year and just circle back and see what kind of change you're affecting in your hometown, because I know that you guys are on a roll, and this, go back to that cycle. It is a cycle. It's a continuous action and movement. And I know that you guys are heavily involved, that you're affecting change and you're empowering others to affect change. And so if you want to connect with Christy and the Carolina Center for Spiritual Awakening, you want information on the classes that are coming up, I will post all of that good information in the comments down below the video here if you're on the Ammie Dover page, and Christy can do the same on hers. We want you guys to get connected. If you felt prompted in any way to ask a question, or to get, maybe you're saying, I need that class, or I just need more of whatever she is giving, and if it's on Monday, I'm in. And so we definitely want you guys to get connected and really start to kick your life and your business into DoverDrive. So thank you again, Christy, and we're going to sign off. Get yourself connected. If you're not on the fan page yet, like it, share it, love it, all the goodness, because there's more to come. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, all the things, right? I don't need to tell you, just do all the things because you need to be connected in all of the ways. We're kicking life and business into DoverDrive, and I will see you next Tuesday at noon.